The desert was silent. The air was thin and the ground was cracked like old skin. A lone human walked slowly across the broken land. His steps were heavy. His clothes were torn. Dust covered his face. He looked tired, like a man who had been walking for days without rest. His name was Daniel. Once he had been a soldier. Once he had marched with strong men carrying weapons and food. But now he was alone. His ship had crashed far from any colony. His friends were gone. His supplies were almost finished. In his pack he had only one thing left, a small meal bar. A thin piece of food enough for one person one time. Daniel touched it often, checking again and again. It was the only thing standing between him and death. The sun above was cruel. It burned his skin and it made his throat dry. Every step felt heavier than the last. He wondered if this was how it would end, walking in silence until he fell and never stood up again. Then, he heard a sound. It was soft, so soft he thought at first it was only the wind. But no, it was something else. A voice, weak, small, trembling. "I'm hungry." Daniel froze. His hand went to the small knife at his belt. He looked around. His soldier's mind was alert again. The desert was empty, wide and endless. Nothing should be here. Nothing alive. He turned his head slowly. At first he saw nothing. Only rocks and sand. But then, near the shadow of a broken pillar, he saw her. A tiny figure, sitting on the ground. It was not human. She looked like a child, no older than 10 in human years, but her skin was pale blue, almost glowing. Her eyes were too big for her small face, round and bright like moons. Her hair was silver, falling down to her shoulders in thin strands. She wore a torn cloth like it had once been a dress, now dirty and full of holes. She was shaking. Her arms hugged her knees. She looked so weak, like a small bird about to fall from the sky. Again, her lips moved. The sound was almost a whisper. "I'm hungry." Daniel's heart twisted. For a moment, he forgot the knife in his hand. He forgot the hunger inside his own stomach. He forgot the danger of strange planets and unknown creatures. She looked at him, not with fear, not with hate, but with eyes full of need. He stepped closer, slow and careful. His boots crunched on the sand. The little alien girl lifted her head. When she saw him, she gasped softly. Her body trembled like she expected him to attack. Daniel stopped a few feet away. He crouched down to her level. "Hey," he said in a soft voice. "It's okay." She blinked, confused by the sound of human words. But she did not run. She only stared at him, her eyes shining with both hope and fear. Daniel's hand went to his pack again. His fingers touched the meal bar. He felt the sharp weight of the decision pressing down on him. It was his last meal. If he gave it away, he might die, but if he kept it, she would surely die. The desert wind blew between them. The choice stood like a wall in his mind, survival or kindness. He remembered voices from long ago. His commander's words, "Humans must endure. Humans must survive." But then he remembered another voice, his mother's. "Never turn away from someone weaker than you. Protect life even when it costs you." His throat tightened. His stomach growled, sharp and painful. His body wanted the food. His body screamed for it, but his heart looked at the girl. She was so small, so fragile. She did not belong in this broken desert. Daniel pulled the meal bar from his pack. He held it in his hand. For a moment he only stared at it as if it were made of gold. Then slowly he held it out to her. The girl's eyes widened. She shook her head, not believing. But he nodded, pushing it gently toward her. "Eat," he said. She reached out with trembling fingers. She touched the meal bar like it might vanish if she was too rough. Then she took it slowly, carefully. She broke a piece and put it in her mouth. She chewed weakly, then swallowed. A faint color returned to her cheeks. She looked at him, and for the first time she smiled. It was small, fragile, but it was real. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was clearer now, like a bell in the wind. Daniel felt something stir in his chest. It was not pride. It was not relief. It was something older, something stronger. It was humanity. The desert was still empty. The sun still burned. He was still hungry, weaker than before, but in that moment he no longer felt alone. And deep inside, he knew. This choice, this single act, was the start of something far greater than survival. Something that could change everything. The little alien girl sat quietly on the ground, holding the small meal bar with both hands. She ate slowly, as if every bite was too precious to waste. Her silver hair moved in the dry wind, shining faintly under the harsh sun. Daniel watched her. His stomach twisted in pain. The smell of food, even from such a small bar, was enough to drive him almost mad with hunger. He had not eaten in 2 days. His lips were cracked and his throat was dry. His body begged him to take the food back, but he did not move. He only watched. Every time she lifted the bar to her mouth, he felt the weight of his choice. His last meal, gone. His only chance to stay alive, slipping away with each bite she took. The desert was silent again, but inside Daniel's head there was a storm. "Fool," a voice inside him whispered. "You gave away your last food. You're going to die here." But another voice, softer, answered. She was dying too. What kind of man watches a child starve? He clenched his fists, torn between regret and resolve. The girl noticed his face. She paused, holding the last small piece of the bar in her hand. Her wide eyes studied him. Then slowly she broke the piece in half. She held one part toward him. Daniel blinked in surprise. She was offering it back. "No," he said, shaking his head. His voice was rough, almost a growl. "It's yours. Eat it," but she did not lower her hand. She pushed the food toward him again, her eyes serious. It was strange. This was not the look of a weak child anymore. It was something else. Something stronger. Daniel hesitated, then finally took the piece from her hand. He put it in his mouth. The taste was plain, dry, but to his body it felt like fire and life together. It gave him strength for a moment, but it also gave him guilt. The girl smiled again, faint but warm. "You are kind," she whispered, her words cut deeper than any knife. Kind. Was that what he was? Or was he just desperate to believe he was more than a starving man in the desert? Daniel looked away, staring at the endless land around them. He knew he had made a choice, but he did not know yet what it would mean. He could have kept the food. He could have walked away. He could have lived one more day. Instead, he chose her. Why? Maybe it was because she looked so small and helpless. Maybe it was because her eyes reminded him of his little sister, long gone on Earth. Or maybe because in this empty world he could not bear to be truly alone anymore. The girl finished the food and wiped her lips with her hand. Then she leaned against the broken pillar, her eyelids heavy. For a moment Daniel thought she might fall asleep, but then she spoke again. "You gave me life," she said softly. "Now I will stay with you." Daniel turned his head sharply. "What?" She nodded, as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. "I will not leave you." He almost laughed, but the sound caught in his throat. "Kid, I can barely protect myself. I have no ship. No food, no water. You stay with me, you die with me." Her large eyes did not blink. "Then I die with you." The words chilled him, not because of fear, but because of the weight of them. She was serious. Daniel rubbed his face, sighing. This was madness. A soldier lost in the desert with a child, an alien child, who thought he could save her. He should tell her to go. He should walk away before she became another burden on his shoulders. But when he looked at her again, something stopped him. Her small frame, her trembling hands, her quiet courage. She had chosen him just as he had chosen her. And choices, once made, could not be taken back. Daniel sat down beside her. The heat of the desert pressed on his shoulders. The silence stretched long, broken only by the sound of their slow breathing. He thought of his old squad, of missions where every choice meant life or death. Back then, he had always chosen survival, the mission, the orders. But this time he had chosen something else, something more dangerous. Compassion. As the sun began to fall, painting the desert in shades of red and gold, Daniel felt a strange calm. His hunger was still sharp. His future was still dark. But inside him, something had shifted. The girl leaned her head against the pillar, her eyes closing. She trusted him already without reason. And he could not betray that trust, not now, not ever. Daniel pulled his knife from his belt and set it across his knees. The desert was not safe, he knew. Night would bring dangers, things that moved in the dark, hunting for weak prey. He looked at the girl again. Her small chest rose and fell as she slept. He whispered almost to himself, "I gave you food. Now I give you my promise. Whatever comes, I'll protect you." The wind shifted, carrying the words away. But in Daniel's heart, the choice was made, and in the silence of the desert, the bond between a human and a tiny alien girl was sealed. The desert night came quickly. The red light of sunset faded and darkness fell like a heavy curtain. The air grew cold and the silence grew sharper. Daniel sat with his back against the broken pillar, holding his knife across his lap. The little alien girl slept beside him, her small body curled up, her silver hair shining faintly in the moonlight. She looked peaceful, almost fragile, like a dream in the middle of this dead world. But Daniel's eyes stayed open. He had been a soldier too long to sleep easily. Every shadow looked like danger. Every sound made his muscles tighten. Out here, he was not sure what hunted in the dark. The girl breathed softly, and Daniel felt the weight of his choice again. He had given her food. He had promised to protect her. But he asked himself, was that kindness or was it weakness? He did not know the answer. Hours passed. The stars above were endless, bright, almost cruel in their beauty. Daniel kept watch, but slowly his eyes grew heavy. Just as his head began to sink forward, he felt a light touch. He opened his eyes quickly. The girl was awake. She was sitting cross-legged, staring at him. In her hands, she held a small stone that glowed faintly as if carrying its own light. Daniel frowned. "Where did you get that?" The girl tilted her head. "It was here, waiting." Her voice was soft, like wind passing through glass. She held the stone out to him. "It helps you not feel so tired." Daniel hesitated, but his curiosity won. He took the stone. The moment it touched his skin, he felt warmth spread through his arm, then his chest. The weight on his shoulders grew lighter. His hunger dulled. His eyes felt clearer. "What is this?" he asked. The girl smiled, small and secret. "It is part of me, my people. We share light." Daniel stared at her. Share light? He didn't understand, but he could feel the truth in his bones. Somehow this small alien girl had given him strength. Not much, but enough to stand, enough to breathe. He handed the stone back, but she pushed it toward him again. "No," she said firmly. "You need it more." Daniel almost argued, but stopped when he saw her eyes. They were too big for her face, but inside them was something steady. Something older than her childlike body. He closed his fist around the stone and whispered, "Thank you." The girl leaned closer, whispering back, "You gave me food. I give you light. We are the same now." Those words stayed with him. We are the same now. For the first time since the crash, Daniel felt less alone. The night dragged on, but with the stone's faint glow in his hand, the fear was easier to bear. He told himself he was only protecting her because he had already chosen to. But deep down he knew something had changed. He was starting to care. When dawn came, the desert looked endless again, stretching in all directions. Daniel rose slowly, his body stiff but stronger than yesterday. The girl stood too, her thin feet sinking into the sand. They began to walk together. At first they said nothing. Only the crunch of boots and the soft steps of bare feet broke the silence. But after a while the girl spoke. "Do humans always share food with strangers?" Daniel almost laughed. "No, not always." "Then why me?" Daniel thought for a long moment before answering. His voice was low, almost tired. "Because you were hungry. Because you reminded me of someone. And because I didn't want to be the kind of man who walks away." The girl looked up at him, her silver hair catching the light. "My people say humans are dangerous, that humans only take. But you gave. That is different." Daniel shook his head. "Humans can be dangerous. I've seen it. I've been part of it. But sometimes we choose to be better." The girl walked quietly for a while, then said, "Then I will tell my people humans can be kind." Daniel's chest tightened. He almost told her she might never see her people again. He almost told her they were both walking into nothing, into death. But he stayed silent. He didn't want to break the small flame of hope shining in her words. As the sun climbed, Daniel noticed something strange. The girl never seemed as weak as he expected. She did not stumble. She did not complain. Her eyes stayed sharp, always watching the horizon. At one point, she stopped and touched the sand with her hand. The ground glowed faintly beneath her fingers. For a brief second, Daniel thought he saw the outline of roots spreading beneath the desert, alive and moving. He stepped back, uneasy. "What did you do?" She looked at him calmly. "I was listening. The land remembers things. Bad things. Close." Daniel gripped his knife. "What kind of things?" She did not answer right away. Her eyes darkened. Finally she said, Hunters. The word made Daniel's stomach drop. He didn't know who these hunters were, but he could hear the fear in her voice. And he understood something then. The food, the stone, the kindness. They were not just survival. They were threads tying them together, pulling him into her world. He had chosen once, and now there was no turning back. He looked at her small figure against the wide desert and said, "If hunters come, they'll have to go through me first." The girl smiled again, soft but real. "Then we are the same. You protect me, I protect you." For the first time, Daniel smiled back. In a broken world of dust and silence, two unlikely souls had found each other. Their bond was still new, still fragile, but it was there, alive, glowing faintly like the little stone in his hand. And in that bond, Daniel felt something dangerous: hope. The desert stretched on, endless and merciless. Daniel walked beside the little alien girl, step by step, the heat biting at his skin. His body was weak, but something inside him kept pushing forward. He told himself it was duty, maybe habit from years as a soldier. But he knew the truth. It was her. The girl. She walked with quiet strength, her silver hair flowing behind her, her glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. She never complained, never begged. She just kept moving like she carried a secret that kept her alive. Daniel had noticed it. The way her hand would sometimes brush the ground and make it glow faintly. The way she seemed to know where to walk, as if the desert whispered to her. At first he told himself it was nothing. Just tricks of the mind, born from hunger and exhaustion. But deep down he knew. She was not just a child. She was something more. By midday they stopped to rest in the shade of a crumbled wall, a ruin left behind by some long-dead civilization. The stone was cracked, the carvings faded, but it gave them cover from the burning sun. Daniel sat with his back against the wall, knife resting on his thigh. The girl sat across from him, knees hugged to her chest. For a long while they said nothing. The silence was heavy, broken only by the whisper of the wind. Then finally Daniel spoke. "Who are you?" The girl lifted her head. Her eyes met his. She hesitated, as if weighing his worth, then said softly, "I am the last of my line." Daniel frowned. "Your line?" "My people are gone," she whispered. "Our colony?" "Destroyed." Our voices silenced. Her words hung in the air like dust. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had seen colonies destroyed before. He had seen fire rain from the sky, cities turned to ash, families torn apart. "Who did it?" he asked, his voice low and sharp. Her eyes darkened like two moons eclipsed. "Hunters," Daniel leaned forward. "These hunters you spoke of before. What are they?" The girl hugged herself tighter, shivering though the air was hot. "They are shadows. They move in silence. They take what they want. They came for us because of what we carry." Daniel's hand tightened on the knife. "What do you carry?" For a moment she did not answer. She looked down at her hands, small and pale, glowing faintly in the shade. Then she whispered, "Light." Daniel stared at her. "Light?" She nodded slowly. "Not the kind from stars. Not the kind from fire. A different light. The light that heals. The light that remembers. It is in me, in all my people. That is why the hunters came. They wanted to take it, to use it, to twist it." Daniel's mind raced. He thought of the glowing stone she had given him, the warmth that had filled his body. He thought of how she seemed to sense the land, to hear whispers he could not. She was telling the truth. "And now they're hunting you," he said quietly. She looked at him with eyes too old for her face. "Yes, I ran when they destroyed my home. I hid. I thought I would die in the desert. Until you found me." Daniel leaned back, his jaw tight. He wanted to tell her she was safe now, that he would protect her. But he was only a man, half-starved, armed with nothing but a knife and fading strength. Yet when he looked at her, small, fragile, yet carrying something that seemed bigger than the universe, he could not imagine walking away. "You should have left me," she said suddenly, her voice trembling. "If you stay, they will find you too. You will die with me." Daniel shook his head. "Kid, listen. I've already made my choice. You're not alone anymore. If they come, I'll face them." Her lips parted as if to argue, but then she stopped. Slowly her eyes softened. For the first time she looked not like a survivor, but like a child, one who wanted to believe in something good. They rested a while longer, then rose again to walk. The desert stretched, endless and cruel, but now Daniel noticed something new. Wherever the girl stepped, the sand seemed less harsh, as if her presence itself was fighting against the dead world. She walked ahead, her silver hair glowing in the sun, and Daniel followed. At one point she spoke again, her voice calm but heavy with meaning. "My people feared humans," she said. "They told stories of your wars, your hunger for power. They said humans destroy what they touch." Daniel smirked bitterly. "They weren't wrong, but you—" She turned her head to look at him. "You gave your food." "But you—" She turned her head to look at him. "You gave your food. You gave your promise. Why?" Daniel thought for a long moment. His boots dragged through the sand as he searched for the right words. "Because I wanted to remember who I am," he said finally. "Not just a soldier, not just a survivor, a human." The girl's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe humans can carry light too." As night began to fall, they found shelter in another ruin, deeper than the last. Broken towers rose like black teeth against the dying sky. Daniel made a small fire with scraps of dry wood, its glow weak but steady. The girl sat close, her face lit by the flames. For the first time she looked almost safe. But Daniel knew better. If the hunters had destroyed her people for their light, they would not stop until they found her. Until they found them both. As he stared into the fire, he whispered to himself, "The secret's out now. And if they come, I'll be ready." The girl looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly. She said nothing, but the silence between them was no longer empty. It was filled with trust and something deeper. A bond that was no longer just survival. It was destiny. The desert was quiet. Too quiet. Daniel had learned that silence could be worse than noise. In war, silence meant the enemy was waiting. In the desert, silence meant something was watching. He sat by the dying fire inside the ruins, his knife resting near his hand. The little alien girl slept curled beside him, her silver hair catching the faint light. She looked peaceful, but Daniel's nerves were sharp as wire. Every instinct in him screamed that the hunters were close. It started with a sound. A scrape, a whisper across stone. Daniel's eyes snapped open. He scanned the shadows between the broken walls. At first he saw nothing. Then their movement, a shadow that moved too smoothly, too low to the ground. He held his breath. His fingers closed around the knife. Another sound followed, softer but closer, the crunch of sand under something heavy. Daniel leaned over the girl, shaking her shoulder. "Wake up quietly." Her eyes opened at once, glowing faint in the dark. She sat up without a word, as if she already knew. "They've found us," she whispered. Daniel's gut twisted. "How many?" She tilted her head, listening to something he could not hear. Then her lips pressed tight. "3, maybe more. They're circling," Daniel cursed under his breath. He had no rifle, no ammo, nothing but a knife in his training. Against one, maybe he had a chance. Against 3 or more. He forced himself to stand. "Stay behind me," the girl shook her head. "No, they want me, not you." "Exactly," Daniel growled. "And they'll only get you over my body." The ruins grew darker as clouds drifted across the moon. Daniel moved slowly, scanning the cracks in the wall, the broken arches. Every shadow could hide death. Then he saw it. Eyes, 2 glowing slits, green and sharp, watching from the rubble. They blinked once, then vanished. Daniel's pulse hammered. The hunters were real. He motioned the girl behind a broken column. "Stay low." She obeyed, but her small hands glowed faintly as if ready to defend. Daniel crouched, pressing his back to the stone. He tried to control his breathing, tried to remember the old lessons, don't panic. Watch the ground. Listen more than you move. The sound came again, scraping, shifting. Then another sound on his left this time. "They were closing in," Daniel whispered. "They're testing us." The girl's eyes narrowed. "They think you're weak." Daniel almost smiled at that. They're not wrong. The first hunter struck fast. A shape lunged from the dark. Long limbs, black skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Its body bent in impossible angles, claws shining under the faint moonlight. Daniel reacted by instinct. He rolled aside as the claws slashed into the stone where his head had been. Sparks flew. He came up swinging, his knife flashing. The blade cut shallow across the creature's arm. The hunter hissed, a sound like boiling steam. The girl cried out, but Daniel shouted, Stay back! The creature circled, its movements unnatural like liquid poured into a broken jar. Then it lunged again. Daniel met it head-on, knife stabbing upward. The blade sank into its shoulder. The hunter shrieked, the sound stabbing into his ears like needles. It recoiled, melting into shadow, vanishing between broken walls. Daniel's chest heaved. His hand shook. He had heard it, but not enough. Then came the second. It leapt from above, claws stretched wide. Daniel dove forward, rolling across the sand. The hunter crashed behind him, stone shattering under its weight. The girl's hands glowed bright now. She raised them, and for a moment the air shimmered. A faint barrier of light flickered between her and the hunters. One claw struck the barrier and sparked, but the glow weakened quickly. The girl gasped, almost falling. Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her close. "Don't waste your strength." Her voice shook. "They won't stop." He tightened his grip on the knife. "Neither will I." The third hunter appeared in the distance, crawling along the wall like a spider, its eyes glowing cold. The others moved in with it, their hisses echoing through the ruins, 3 against 1. Daniel's breath came hard. His body was already failing, but he planted his feet, lifting the knife. "Come on," he muttered, his voice low and steady. "Come and try." The girl clutched his arm. "They'll kill you," Daniel glanced at her. For a second he almost laughed. "Then I'll make them work for it." The hunters circled closer, their claws scraping against stone, their bodies shifting like living shadows. Daniel's eyes darted between them, calculating, searching for weakness. But before they struck, something changed. The girl stepped forward. Her body glowed brighter, light spilling from her skin. She raised her small hands, and the ground beneath them trembled. The hunters paused, hissing in anger, recoiling from the sudden light. Daniel stared at her, stunned. "Kid, what are you—" Her voice rang clear and strong, louder than he had ever heard. "They will not take me." The light burst outward, sharp and blinding. The ruins shook. The hunters screamed, twisting in pain. For a moment, Daniel saw their black forms burn against the glow like shadows caught in fire. Then silence. When the light faded, the ruins were empty. The hunters were gone. The girl fell to her knees, weak and shaking. Daniel dropped beside her, catching her before she collapsed. Her small body felt cold in his arms. She whispered, her voice faint. "I used too much, but it was the only way." Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at the empty ruins, at the place where the hunters had vanished. "They'll be back," he said grimly, "and next time I'll be ready." He lifted the girl into his arms, carrying her toward the shadows of the desert. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun. The desert was quiet, too quiet. Daniel had learned that silence could be worse than noise. In war, silence meant the enemy was waiting. In the desert, silence meant something was watching. He sat by the dying fire inside the ruins, his knife resting near his hand. The little alien girl slept curled beside him, her silver hair catching the faint light. She looked peaceful, but Daniel's nerves were sharp as wire. Every instinct in him screamed that the hunters were close. It started with a sound. A scrape, a whisper across stone. Daniel's eyes snapped open. He scanned the shadows between the broken walls. At first he saw nothing. Then their movement, a shadow that moved too smoothly, too low to the ground. He held his breath. His fingers closed around the knife. Another sound followed, softer but closer, the crunch of sand under something heavy. Daniel leaned over the girl, shaking her shoulder. "Wake up quietly." Her eyes opened at once, glowing faint in the dark. She sat up without a word, as if she already knew. "They've found us," she whispered. Daniel's gut twisted. "How many?" She tilted her head, listening to something he could not hear. Then her lips pressed tight. 3, maybe more. "They're circling," Daniel cursed under his breath. He had no rifle, no ammo, nothing but a knife in his training. Against one, maybe he had a chance. Against 3 or more. He forced himself to stand. "Stay behind me," the girl shook her head. "No, they want me, not you." "Exactly," Daniel growled. "And they'll only get you over my body." The ruins grew darker as clouds drifted across the moon. Daniel moved slowly, scanning the cracks in the wall, the broken arches. Every shadow could hide death. Then he saw it. Eyes, 2 glowing slits, green and sharp, watching from the rubble. They blinked once, then vanished. Daniel's pulse hammered. The hunters were real. He motioned the girl behind a broken column. Stay low. She obeyed, but her small hands glowed faintly as if ready to defend. Daniel crouched, pressing his back to the stone. He tried to control his breathing, tried to remember the old lessons: don't panic. Watch the ground. Listen more than you move. The sound came again, scraping, shifting. Then another sound on his left this time. They were closing in, Daniel whispered. They're testing us. The girl's eyes narrowed. They think you're weak. Daniel almost smiled at that. They're not wrong. The first hunter struck fast. A shape lunged from the dark. Long limbs, black skin that shimmered like liquid metal. Its body bent in impossible angles, claws shining under the faint moonlight. Daniel reacted by instinct. He rolled aside as the claws slashed into the stone where his head had been. Sparks flew. He came up swinging, his knife flashing. The blade cut shallow across the creature's arm. The hunter hissed, a sound like boiling steam. The girl cried out, but Daniel shouted, "Stay back!" The creature circled, its movements unnatural, like liquid poured into a broken jar. Then it lunged again. Daniel met it head-on, knife stabbing upward. The blade sank into its shoulder. The hunter shrieked, the sound stabbing into his ears like needles. It recoiled, melting into shadow, vanishing between broken walls. Daniel's chest heaved. His hand shook. He had heard it, but not enough. Then came the second. It leapt from above, claws stretched wide. Daniel dove forward, rolling across the sand. The hunter crashed behind him, stone shattering under its weight. The girl's hands glowed bright now. She raised them, and for a moment the air shimmered. A faint barrier of light flickered between her and the hunters. One claw struck the barrier and sparked, but the glow weakened quickly. The girl gasped, almost falling. Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her close. "Don't waste your strength." Her voice shook. "They won't stop." He tightened his grip on the knife. "Neither will I." The third hunter appeared in the distance, crawling along the wall like a spider, its eyes glowing cold. The others moved in with it, their hisses echoing through the ruins. 3 against 1. Daniel's breath came hard. His body was already failing. But he planted his feet, lifting the knife. "Come on," he muttered, his voice low and steady. "Come and try," the girl clutched his arm. "They'll kill you." Daniel glanced at her. For a second he almost laughed. "Then I'll make them work for it." The hunters circled closer, their claws scraping against stone, their bodies shifting like living shadows. Daniel's eyes darted between them, calculating, searching for weakness. But before they struck, something changed. The girl stepped forward. Her body glowed brighter, light spilling from her skin. She raised her small hands and the ground beneath them trembled. The hunters paused, hissing in anger, recoiling from the sudden light. Daniel stared at her, stunned. "Kid, what are you—" Her voice rang clear and strong, louder than he had ever heard. "They will not take me." The light burst outward, sharp and blinding. The ruins shook. The hunters screamed, twisting in pain. For a moment, Daniel saw their black forms burn against the glow like shadows caught in fire. Then silence. When the light faded, the ruins were empty. The hunters were gone. The girl fell to her knees, weak and shaking. Daniel dropped beside her, catching her before she collapsed. Her small body felt cold in his arms. She whispered, her voice faint, "I used too much." But it was the only way. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at the empty ruins, at the place where the hunters had vanished. "They'll be back," he said grimly, "and next time I'll be ready." He lifted the girl into his arms, carrying her toward the shadows of the desert. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun. The desert night stretched long and cruel. Daniel walked with the alien girl in his arms, her small body trembling against his chest. Her light had saved them, but it had also drained her strength. She was pale, her silver hair damp with sweat, her voice weak. "Put me down," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "You can't walk?" "Not now." Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly. "They will come again." "You know this." "I know," Daniel said quietly. His voice was steady, but his heart was heavy. He had seen enough battles to recognize the truth. The hunters weren't gone. They had only been pushed back, and next time they would come in greater numbers. By dawn, Daniel found another ruin, half buried in the sand. It was larger than the last, with broken towers rising like black spears. He carried the girl inside and laid her gently against a wall. She looked up at him, her small hands clutching his sleeve. "You should leave me," she said. Daniel crouched beside her, meeting her glowing eyes. "Not happening. You'll die if you stay." "I'll die if I go too," he said with a dry laugh. So what's the difference? Her lips parted, but no sound came. She just stared at him as if trying to understand the strange, stubborn thing called humanity. The ruins were quiet, but Daniel's instincts told him it wouldn't last. He sharpened his knife against a stone, every scrape echoing in the silence. His body ached with hunger, his throat burned with thirst, but his focus stayed sharp. He had one purpose now: to keep her alive. Hours passed. The sun climbed. The girl dozed in the shade, her breath shallow but steady. Daniel kept watch, his eyes scanning every crack, every shadow. And then it came, the sound he dreaded, a hiss. Low, long, and hungry, Daniel stood at once, knife in hand. He moved to the center of the ruin, his eyes narrowing as shapes emerged from the sand. Not 3 this time. 6. The hunters crawled forward, their bodies twisting like living smoke, their claws scraping against stone. Their green eyes glowed cold, fixed on the girl behind him. Daniel's chest tightened. 6 against 1. He had no chance, but he didn't back down. The first hunter lunged. Daniel dodged, slashing with his knife. The blade cut deep into its side, and the creature shrieked, but another leapt at him from behind. He spun, stabbing upward, catching it under the chin. Black blood sprayed across the sand. The hunter writhed, but 2 more rushed in at once. Claws tore across his arm. Pain seared through him, hot and sharp, but he didn't drop the knife. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose. The girl cried out from behind him. "Daniel! Stay back!" he shouted, his voice raw. "Don't use your light, it'll kill you." She pressed her glowing hands to the ground, trembling. "I can't just watch." "You can," he growled, blocking another strike. His blade sank into another hunter's chest. "Because if you die, then none of this means anything." Blood dripped down his arm. His breaths came ragged. His body screamed at him to stop, to give up. But Daniel kept moving, kept fighting, kept standing between her and the shadows. A claw struck his chest, cutting deep. He staggered, dropping to one knee. His knife slipped from his hand, clattering across the stone. The hunters closed in, hissing in triumph. The girl screamed, light bursting from her body in a desperate flash. The hunters recoiled, but Daniel grabbed her arm, his grip tight. "No," he rasped. "Don't burn yourself out. Listen to me. You can't give them what they want. Promise me." Tears filled her glowing eyes. "But you'll die." Daniel smiled faintly, blood dripping from his lips. "I've been dying since the crash, kid. This is different. This means something." He shoved himself to his feet, staggering toward the hunters. He grabbed his knife again, raising it high. His voice was hoarse, but it rang like steel. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The hunters lunged together, a storm of claws and shadows. Daniel roared, slashing wildly, his body moving on pure will. He knew he couldn't win. He knew this was the end. But he also knew one thing. He would not let them take her. Every cut, every strike, every drop of blood was his sacrifice. The girl's scream filled the ruins. Her light surged again, brighter than before, blinding, burning. Daniel felt it wash over him, warm and fierce even as his body crumpled under the assault. The hunters shrieked in pain, their forms burning away in the radiance. One by one they dissolved into nothing, swallowed by the girl's light. Silence fell. Daniel collapsed to the ground, his knife slipping from his hand. His chest rose and fell weakly, blood staining the sand beneath him. The girl crawled to him, her hands glowing faint, tears streaming down her face. No, don't leave me." He looked up at her, his vision fading.
He managed a small smile.
"Told you. I'd protect you." Her light spread over his wounds, but it flickered, weak and unsteady. She tried again, her hands shaking. "Stay alive. Please, stay." Daniel's eyes closed slowly. His voice was faint, barely a whisper. "Live. Be free." And then he went still. The girl's sobs echoed through the ruins. Her small body shook, but her light grew brighter, fiercer. She held him close, her voice breaking. "You gave everything for me. Then I will give everything for you." The ruins glowed as her power awakened fully, rising like a second sun. The hunters were gone, but the true battle was only beginning. The ruins were silent. The desert wind moved through broken stone, carrying the smell of dust and blood. Daniel lay motionless on the ground, his body broken from the fight. His knife was still in his hand, though his fingers had gone cold. The little alien girl knelt beside him, her glowing eyes filled with tears. She shook him gently, whispering his name. Daniel. Daniel, wake up. But he did not move. His chest was still. His voice was gone. She pressed her small glowing hands to his wounds, pouring what little energy she had left into him. The light flickered, weak and trembling. No matter how hard she tried, his body did not respond. Her sobs echoed in the ruins. She had seen her people fall, her home destroyed. She had run and hidden, always afraid. But now, for the first time, she had found someone who gave instead of taking, who fought for her instead of against her. And he was gone. No, she whispered, her voice breaking. Not you. Anyone but you. The ground trembled. Far away, more hunters stirred in the shadows of the desert. The girl could feel them coming, drawn by the faint glow of her power. They would not stop. They would never stop. Her small hands clenched into fists. Her tears burned against her cheeks, but her eyes hardened. You gave your last food. You gave your promise. You gave your life, she whispered to Daniel. Now I give mine. She closed her eyes. The glow within her body grew brighter, pulsing like a star ready to break. The ruins filled with light, pouring through cracks in the stone, rising into the sky like a beacon. The hunters howled in the distance, sensing the power. But as they drew near, the light burst outward in a wave. It swept across the desert, scorching the shadows, erasing their cries. The girl's voice rang in the storm of radiance. This is my gift. This is his legacy. When the light faded, silence fell once more. The desert was empty. The hunters were gone. The girl lay on the ground, her body weak, her glow faint. She turned her head slowly, looking at Daniel's still form. And then, her eyes widened, his chest rose. Just once, shallow but real. She crawled to him, pressing her hand to his heart. The glow in her palm flared, feeding into him. Come back, she whispered. Please come back. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then his chest rose again. His lips parted with a ragged breath. Daniel's eyes opened slowly. His vision blurred, but he saw her, small, glowing, smiling through her tears. You're still here, he whispered. She nodded, her voice trembling with relief. Because of you. Because you gave me strength. I gave it back. Daniel groaned, trying to sit up. His body still ached, but the wounds were closing, faint scars left behind by the light. He looked at her in disbelief. You saved me, the girl smiled weakly. No, we saved each other. The sun rose again, painting the desert gold. Daniel sat beside her, his arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. The hunters were gone, but both of them knew they would not stay gone forever. Still, for now, they had peace. The girl leaned against him, her voice soft. My people are gone, but I am not alone anymore. Daniel looked at the horizon, his jaw firm. Then we keep moving. We find others. We survive together, she whispered. He nodded. Together, days passed. They traveled across the desert, the bond between them growing stronger with every step. Daniel's strength returned slowly, not from food or water, but from the strange light she shared with him. And the girl grew stronger too, learning to use her gift with more control. One night, as they sat beneath the stars, she spoke again. My people called humans destroyers, she said quietly. But when they speak of me, when they remember my story, I will tell them the truth. Humans can fight. Humans can bleed, but humans can also give. They can protect. They can carry light. Daniel looked at her, his scarred face softened by a faint smile. If that's what they remember, maybe it's enough. The girl reached for his hand, her small fingers curling around his. You are my family now. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. And you're mine. As the stars glimmered above, the desert no longer felt endless. The ruins of the past still stood, but in the middle of the broken world, something new had been born. Not just survival, a bond, a legacy. One human, one alien child, carrying light together in a universe full of darkness. And though the hunters would one day return, though danger would always chase them, neither of them feared it anymore, because in the end, it wasn't the meal bar that saved them. It was the choice to give, the choice to trust, the choice to fight for someone else. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, letting the cold desert wind wash over him. He whispered into the night, not sure if the stars were listening. Humans fight, humans endure, but above all, humans protect. The girl leaned against him, her silver hair glowing softly in the starlight, and together they kept walking into the unknown. Two lives, one bond, carrying a spark that could outshine the dark.